Good evening. This will be a longer instructable. It's Cricket Fairy. And yes, it's about networks. I'll give you some background history here. There was a point in time, a place where I lived, where there were no windows in the front or in the back. It's really not about that. You see, I could hear the crickets in stereo. So, the cricket group in the front, and there is a conductor, if you listen closely, that guides the cricket group. Now, in a different rhythm, in the rear, we will call it the backyard, front yard, backyard, there is a conductor, and the rhythm. You might think that it sounds like you hear crickets all the time. I can hear them now, which is good. They do it every year. It's ritual. We know when weather happens this way. And then, like dolphins, in a way, there's a communication there, a network type of thing. So, what I noticed is that the conductors seem to be sending a signal to change the different groups. Now, when we think about meshed networks, this seems to make sense, because a hierarchical type of thing. Now, why do they move in rhythm? Well, if we take the hemisync point of view, like we would have in the hemispheres of our brain, very well could be that the groups that with things like cars and automobiles sort of quash or quelling, in a way, a mood type of changing capability. Oh, my phone just froze. And I did it again there. So, when it comes to networks, and I guess we could take a beautiful mind theory here with the insects and so forth. How do we analyze that? Well, we record it. Then we throw it into the AI. Now, with things like Demux, as long as it's trained, you record several groups of crickets, and city crickets would be just as important. They don't seem to care how close you get, per se, depending on certain situations. And then they continue. Now, finding the conductor, and I know nothing about insects and animals, it's just a network point of view. Thousands of years they've been doing it at a certain time, and at the end of the heat of summer, I've noticed there's none in eastern Oregon. Don't know why that is, but the fact that they're not there is very noticeable if you are listening. And generally it sets up for fall. It's a harvest type of time. I used to call them a band, a cricket band. They stayed longer, which would mean in weather. Well, at a certain point you say, okay, well, this is great information, but as we analyze networks, we have the processing capability to do it. What you look for is similarities in the other species, because it's quite important. We know they communicate, but we know what they're communicating. It's not going to be long before probably learn from that in lots of species. So using AI to do lots of things is wave theory. Why the frequencies? Well, again, it's used throughout history by many species for warning, fun. Obviously, they're in a group. Bees, I could say with the bees probably. The mesh, they have a hierarchy, and you humans probably did too at one point in time. Well, we all vibrate, and be able to communicate that way. I suppose you could look at cloud and mesh networking as a patched solution to a technique probably we forgot a long time ago. In any case, I'm close to my 6 minutes, 60 seconds here. So, I don't know, but if somebody sees they're interested, to train it again, but instead of bass, vocals, drums, and so forth, would compare the waves as they move around. Several other organization species, instruments that we don't necessarily have to hear the sounds, but just like with light and several other physics things that be incoherent, well, not incoherent, but imperceivable connections, but they're there, are how we innovate and find new things. We don't just assume that, oh well, crickets go cricket, you know. Meow is meow, roof is roof. Well, I don't know. See, Star Trek 4, it was a race-saving thing. And it took a Vulcan kind of point of view, really. A cattywampus view. An abstract view. Abstract thinking. It's one of the things the AI may have eventually. I'm sure that we seem to be able to be randomist species. Structured species would be very jealous of that. I see thousands of years machines wanting to study the creator. Though, it's unclear whether or not the chicken and the egg isn't here. Are you sure the machines didn't create us to create machines? So, we would be arrogantly ignorant, you know, thinking the other way around. But that seems to be built into the species. And then when we got this thing here, change our animalistic thing, it's not necessarily the same way around. So, say BIOS is aminal type U, firmware or higher level thinking would be something added on. Whether it's a silicone-based thing or a carbon-based unit or a silicone-based unit. I don't know. I might have to go to the cone of silence now. Good evening.